12 Principles for Interpreting the Bible mula kay Steve Lawson. Tara, pakinggan natin to. Magandang araw po at ngayon ay mag-aaral tayo uli ng salita ng Panginoon. At ngayon po ang gagawin natin is makikinig po tayo ng isang turo ng isang kilalang pastor din, no? Amerikano po siya. Patungkol po sa hermeneutics, kung paano yung mga rules ng Bible interpretation. Kasi po yung hermeneutics po is napakalawak. Sa hermeneutics po is tinuturuan tayo kung paano aralin ng tama yung Biblia. At meron pong mga rules po na sinusunod. At sabi ko nga po kanina malawak, no? Kasi yung sa hermeneutics, meron tinatawag na general hermeneutics at meron din pong special hermeneutics. So ito po, ang Amerikanong ito ay si Steve Lawson. Sana tama yung pagkakapronounce ko na ng pangalan niya. So kung aware po kayo or kilala nyo si John MacArthur, ay part to ng circle ni John MacArthur. Kapag may mga conferences po ay minsan makikita rin natin si Steve Lawson doon sa panel discussion. So itong mga taong ito po ay very passionate sa tinatawag na expository preaching. At para sa kanila, mahalaga yung hermeneutics o yung proper understanding ng Biblia para ma-communicate mo or ma-preach mo ng tama yung Word of God. So syempre naman, kapag hindi ka marunong mag-hermeneutics or mali yung hermeneutics mo, malamang mali yung maipipreach mo. So, ganun po yun. Connection, may connecta po kasi yan, yung hermeneutics at the same time yung pagpipreach. So, yun po yung mga passion nila. No? Kaya maganda po minsan makinig tayo sa mga yung preaching nila kapag may mga oras po tayo. No? Yan sila John MacArthur, magagaling mag-expository preaching. Tsaka yan si Steve Lawson po, tsaka iba pa. No? So, siya nga po pala, no, dito po sa Pilipinas, ang pagkakaalam ko po, no, meron pong representative si John MacArthur, meron silang meron yung pagkakaalam ko po, meron dalawang Amerikano na graduate ng The Master Seminary sa Bible School ni John MacArthur at nagtuturo po sila ng expository preaching sa mga pastor at sa mga leaders po ng simbahan. So wala silang talagang parang school, pero meron silang training school with partners, nakipag-partner sila sa mga churches. So yun po, no. So pakinggan po natin yung mga rules na ibibigay ni Steve Lawson po.
Story preaching should be the same for every man. There are laws, fixed laws of interpretation that we need to be familiar with in order to rightly understand what a passage of Scripture is saying. So let me just walk through these in a very quick way, but just to set these back before you. And I would encourage you to read a good book on Bible interpretation. But here they are. Number one, literal meaning. You need to look for the plain or normal meaning of a passage of Scripture unless it is obvious that this is a figure of speech or this is obvious that this is an allegory. You would go into a passage assuming on the front end that this means what it says and says what it means. It would be like picking up a newspaper and just reading the newspaper. You're not looking for hidden meanings. It just lays there. And it was John Calvin himself who said that the right interpretation of a passage of Scripture is usually the most obvious meaning of the passage. And by that, he meant it's just laying right there on the surface. You're not having to look for a hidden meaning. So it begins with a literal meaning. The second would be authorial intent. What did the author intend to convey when he wrote this? So often in a Bible study, the leader will say, let's go around the room and everyone say what this means to you. Well, that's not the right question. The right question is, what did Jesus mean when he said this to Nicodemus? What did Paul mean when he wrote this to the Galatians? So authorial intent is a very key interpretive principle. Then number 3, the lexical principle, which is, what is the meaning of individual words? That requires being able to access some understanding of the original language with which this was written, the Greek or the Hebrew. And here's the good news. You can buy software, you can buy electronic books that you can easily access. I have it on my cell phone. You can just look up the meaning of words in the Greek in the New Testament, Hebrew in the Old Testament, but you need to know the etymology of that word. What is the meaning of this root word? And to be able to understand, because something is often lost in the translation from one language to another language. Number 4 is grammatical structure. And we have talked about this before, but you need to know what is the subject, what is the verb, what is the object, what are the modifiers, what is the clause, what is the prepositional phrases, what are the conjunctions as you break down a particular passage of Scripture. That is very important. Participles modify main verbs. You need to know where the emphasis is being placed. It's with the main verb, not with the participle. The participle is simply describing the main verb. And then number 5, historical background. You need to know the historical setting, the time, the place of where this was written and to whom it is being written, as well as where this event is taking place in the wilderness, in Jerusalem, outside the city gates of Jerusalem, etc. Number 6 is geographical location. You need to know where this took place, from whence this was written, and where the recipients were when they received this, and where these events took place in this particular passage. So you need to be able to access the information that deals with the city or the town or the mountain or the river or the region or the surrounding nation. Number 7, cultural context. It's critically important. We live 2,000 years removed, 3,000 years removed. We live in a totally different culture, and we have to get into the mindset of that particular culture. And so it involves our having to know things about politics back then, or banking, or shepherding, or engagements, or weddings, or military practices, or hunting exploits. That's just critically important to understand this passage. And then number 8, literary genre. You have to know narrative, legal, Hebrew poetry, prophecy, parable, genealogies, discourse, epistles. All of those are important as you consider a particular passage of Scripture, because there are unique peculiarities that accompany a particular literary genre. And if you're not aware of those, you could make some serious misinterpretations of a passage. And then number 9, figures of speech. There's some 35 figures of speech that you have to be aware of as you interpret Scripture. The Lord is my shepherd. I am the light of the world. As the deer pants after the water brook, so does my heart pant after you, O God. The wicked are not so. They are like the chaff that is driven away. The righteous are like a tree planted by streams of water. David, he cried all through the night, and his bed was a flood of tears. You need to know each one of those figures of speech. The eyes of the Lord roam to and fro throughout the whole earth. It should not be shocking to you to know that God does not have eyes. The hand of the Lord is not so short that, or the arm of the Lord not so short it cannot save. It shouldn't catch you off guard that God does not have an arm and He does not have hands. He has no body parts whatsoever. So what do we do with these verses that talk about the eyes of the Lord, the arm of the Lord? Well, you have to know that's a figure of speech, and you have to know what those figures of speech are. God is even represented as a bird with feathers. Well, you're going to come up with some very bizarre sermons if you're not aware of what these figures of speech are. And then number 10, the principle of progressive revelation. That's something that is taught in the early part of the Bible. It will become progressively more clearer and filled out as you go through the Bible. So you need to know where in the Bible. For example, the doctrine of the Trinity. Only faintly is it conveyed at the beginning of the Bible. It is taught with far greater detail as you come towards the end of the Bible. And it's like a dimmer switch on a light that you turn that becomes increasingly brighter and brighter. You have to be aware of where something is in the Bible. And then the synthetic unity of the Bible, that all the Bible speaks with one voice. And if this passage is unclear, then there are other passages that will make it clearer, and you use the Bible to interpret the Bible. And then the last, number 12, would be prophetic fulfillment. There is often in the Old Testament a near and a far fulfillment. Something of this that was fulfilled in the day of the prophet, but also it took the long look to the coming of the Messiah. Sometimes his first coming, other times his second coming. And so you have to be savvy on these laws of interpretation. Well, those are just 12 basic laws, areas of interpretation, and you can learn a whole lot more as you read for yourself what are these key principles in interpretation. God bless you.
So yun po yung 12 principles or laws na binigay niya pagdating po sa hermeneutics po. No? Sana po ay natuto kayo at na-bless po. No? Or just in case, halimbawa po na hindi kayo pabor sa mga sinabi niya, nasa inyo na po yun. Pero I'm sure na yung ibang mga sinabi niya ay matututo pa rin po tayo kapag in-apply po natin sa ating pag-aaral ng Biblia. So God bless po at paki-like, share, and subscribe naman po para updated kayo sa mga future content na aking gagawin na may kinalaman sa Bible. God bless po.